Hi, I'm Paula Flowe, Executive Director of The Hitting Stops Here, a campaign for teaching kindness and respect in schools everywhere. Today is November 16th, 2010. H.R. 5628, the bill introduced by New York Representative Carolyn McCarthy entitled Ending Corporal Punishment in Schools Act, is running out of time. So many people think that today, in this new millennium, children are so out of control. And they think they need to beat them more, or punish them more, or build more prisons to have ready for these out-of-control children of today's society. What people need to remember is that children are the same today as they were last year and as they will be in the future. And they will always need the same thing: good mentoring, patience, understanding, respect, and lots of love. Marcus Lawrence Ward, governor in 1867 in the state of New Jersey, decided that the wooden board was a slave tool. And Governor Ward of that day was in fact the author of the 13th Amendment, which is the law that prohibited slavery. And he felt that if he kept the wooden board in schools, that he'd be a hypocrite. And that's why New Jersey was the first state to ban U.S. school beatings, again, way back in 1867. Well, currently we have a bill out named Ending Corporal Punishment in Schools Act. The bill number is H.R. 5628. And was introduced in June 29, 2010, by New York Representative Carolyn McCarthy, a woman with integrity, a woman who lost her husband and whose son was paralyzed. From what I understand, he's doing much better now, but they were in a violent shootout in a New York City subway. And the person who caused this harm and fatal injury to her loved ones had a history of being child abused. I am now appealing to American school children, your peers in U.S. states and throughout our U.S. territories, who face teachers who are sanctioned to beat them, need your voice. I've actually gone to every level, every type of organization for support in having our American school children protected from harm. Now we have a bill that is out that is about to die simply because of the lack of support. Our news media, CNN, they are not exposing this to the American public. Our U.S. congressional leaders, they're being very quiet too. Jesse Jackson Jr., the child of a civil rights leader, himself is qualified to sign this bill and set the pace for others. 400 plus congressional leaders have the right to sign this bill. Even our Homeland Security Committee members, they're the ones that we look up to for protecting our country from terrorism. Well, our American school children are being terrorized, and Homeland Security has failed to sign this bill. Our Intelligence Committee, Peter Hoekstra, for example, Texas representative, has failed to sign this bill. Women's rights organizations, Black American organizations, the NAACP won't do a thing to help our children. The PTA, the National PTA, is being silent. The American Federation of Teachers is being silent. I could give you a whole long list of people, organizations, news media. I was interviewed by People magazine for about 30 minutes last month. I believe it was the last Monday of October. I'm yet to see that article published. I was interviewed by CBS Channel 8 in Atlanta. That was not published. Very few news media are interested in this topic. If this bill is not passed or brought to the floor so that it can go to the Senate and onto President Obama's desk for signing into law, our American school children will remain in unsafe conditions. Allowing H.R. 5628 to die today, in the year 2010, would be like allowing the 13th Amendment to die back in the 1800s. Allowing our school children to be subjected to school beatings is the same as leaving the Black American men and women who were subjected to lynch mob victims. There was a 14th Amendment that did not protect them. And Black Americans, along with fellow white Americans and other people who supported peace, had to march to have the 14th Amendment right extended to lynch mob victims. Wives were allowed, husbands were sanctioned to smack their wives. Women had to march for freedom from that abuse. Even animals, people who love animals, fought for a law to protect animals from abuse. You beat a dog, you're going to jail. You beat an American school child, well, that's okay. Long as it's not mom or dad, and only a U.S. government paid educator, principal, superintendent, that's okay. How about prisoners? Prisoners, you cannot take a wooden board and beat them. You can't punch them, hit them, yank them. That's all against the law. We are simply trying to bring our U.S. schools up to prison standards, where every American school child is protected by the 14th Amendment. So far, this bill has 16 signatures. All of them are Democrats. We need 24. We're only short 8 votes right now for having H.R. 56 reach the floor. The opportunity to bring this back up to Congress will be delayed a whole entire year. That's 1.5 million American school children who will be subjected to school beatings and other forms of school corporal punishment. I am unable to get support from anywhere. And that's why I'm reaching out to American school children, particularly high school students who can really take action, middle school students who can take action, college. I am appealing to you to please go to thehittingstopshere.com, go to our message board. 2 things that you can do that are most important. Number 1, there's a list of all of the education committee members who can sign this bill to have it advanced. Now, keep this in mind too. Department of Education and Labor, George Miller, he is able to force this bill onto the House floor even without having 24 signatures. There were 47 committee members. You have to have a majority of them, making that 24. We have only 16. He can force this bill onto the floor, schedule a hearing, and do it. He is the Department of Education and Labor, and he is remaining silent. If corporate America is not going to help, if our news media won't help, if organizations that are like the women's rights organizations, children's rights organizations, variety of organizations that will not come together at this time to push this bill onto the floor and have it land on President Obama's desk, all I could do now is appeal to American school children. Take a look at our YouTube, where you will see middle school students in Austin, Texas, campaigning. We interviewed them, and they said they are embarrassed that Texas leads the way in school beatings, and furthermore, that they had no idea that this was even going on. Our American school children in school districts throughout the U.S. and its territories where school beatings are sanctioned are waiting for America to take responsibility for them, in spite of the fact that they are poor whites, poor blacks, poor Latinos, Native Americans, and children with special needs. They have every right and deserve protection. We are the one and only industrialized democratic nation that sanctions teachers to beat the children in their care. All of the school districts that allow school beatings in this country are the lowest. Texas, Mississippi. Why are we holding on to this?